Good evening all, welcome back to Carrow Road, where unfortunately it's been a pretty miserable night. A 2-0 defeat to Aston Villa that could have been worse, really. The performance probably deserved a heavier defeat. There's plenty of context behind it. In the end, Norwich were without 10 first-team players, thanks to Ozan Kabak going off and joining those who were already unavailable. There's a bit of COVID in the camp, which is concerning. Across the Premier League, of course, at the moment, not just at Norwich, but here at Carrow Road, they sit bottom of the Premier League table. That's 3 successive defeats, 1 goal in 5 games. The honeymoon period is very much over for Dean Smith now, and he's got a real challenge on his hands to find a second bounce, really. I just listened to his press conference, and he opened by saying we were miles off it, we were passive off the ball, slow on the ball, and obviously that's not a very good mix. And that sums it up pretty well. It was a rancid night, really, for Norwich. A frustrating performance in every aspect. They really didn't have any clear-cut chances. Perhaps you could say they were running on empty a bit after the efforts they put in against Manchester United. But I won't keep this video at it going too long, because it has been one of those nights where you just want to kind of forget about it. It was not enjoyable in any way for the packed out home crowd. As usual, the Villa fans rubbing salt into the wounds by chanting Dino, and Dino is a blue, and jingle bells, oh what fun it is to see Villa win away, all that sort of stuff, as you would expect. Possession 50-50. Shots, Norwich had 7, 3 on target. Villa had 17 and 6 on target. But Norwich's 3 on target, they were not particularly threatening at all. There was a Ben Gibson header which looped towards goal. There was a Jacob Sorensen header where he didn't really make clean contact with it. And there was an Adam Eder header where he flicked on a Billy Gilmore free kick, but he was offside anyway. It wasn't given because it wasn't needed to, but we saw the replay. It would have been given offside if he'd have managed to beat the keeper, but he didn't. He looped it tamely towards him. The only other real big chance was when there was a mistake from Ashley Young playing a back pass to Emi Martinez. Kenny McLean did read it, but couldn't make the most of it. He sort of flicked it past Martinez, but didn't make proper contact with it. And that was the only proper chance, really. But we had a bit of a sinking feeling from when the teams were named. 4 changes, some of them enforced, but there's sort of more to it than that. Brandon Williams did come back in for Dimitris Giannoulis, who was on the bench and apparently is one of the players feeling under the weather. Ben Gibson did come back into central defence. We knew Graham Hanley was going to be missing because of his shoulder injury. We'll have to see how long that's going to keep him out. He was here tonight and his arm was still in a sling. Jacob Sorensen kept his came into the starting lineup after obviously playing most of Saturdays. He finally got a start in central defence midfield, and I will give him my man of the match. The only player who can just about get not just about, he gets a 7 out of 10. I think certainly in the defensive midfield role in the first half before he had to move back into defence, was pretty impressed with the sort of ratting work that he was doing in there, winning the ball, getting his foot in, and looking like a proper defensive midfielder, and making us again wonder why we've not really seen him get that chance before. So yeah, he's the only one for me who gets a 7, mostly 5s, I'd say. I mean, you can't really criticise Krul tonight. Did make one important save, didn't really do a lot wrong, so he can have a 6. Gibson, again, not too much wrong, he can have a 6. Aaron's plenty of effort, Poiheta, plenty of effort. And we saw Sam Byram. That was pretty much the only positive of the night. A bit of a surprise, though. He came on in defensive midfield, and Jacob Sorensen dropped back to centre-back when Ozan Kabak limped off in first half injury time. And Dean Smith has just said that he had cramp on either side of his calves in both legs. So he just basically couldn't keep going. So whether that's just Saturday catching up with him in particular is how that one would seem. But yeah, so in terms of ratings, everyone else could have a 5. I mean, Cantwell in the first half was probably a 4. He was doing better in the second half, but then he was replaced on the hour by Adam Eder, and he did not look happy about it at all, because the first 15 minutes of the second half, he was looking better, to be fair. He was more involved. He was whipping up the Barkley after winning a corner. He was winning a couple of balls. He was starting to show a bit of life, and I think he felt pretty frustrated he was taken off at that point. But first half, he wasn't involved at all. He was a complete passenger. It was just like that Southampton game, and thought he might have been taken off at half time. So yeah, a bit of an awkward one for Todd. He definitely wanted to stay on, and I think he was certainly that 15 minutes. He was more effective than Adam Eder was on the left after he came on. Didn't offer a great deal, to be honest. Put himself about, but he's symptomatic of the. I won't use that word. That's not one we want to hear at the moment, is it? But it reflective of the sort of lacking in confidence throughout the whole squad, and that's a difficult thing to build when you're at the bottom of the table and in bad form. So out of the starting 11 was Hanley, Rupp, Yanudis and Sargent. Rupp and Sargent weren't on the bench at all. Them and Lisa Malou are symptomatic with COVID. They are obviously going to have to be, as all the Premier League teams are now, testing a lot. You just got to hope that there isn't a wider scale outbreak, that there aren't going to be more positive tests in the days to follow. Jolis obviously already isolating, because then that could put West Ham in danger on Saturday. Dean Smith did just talk a little bit about it in terms of they didn't try to get the game postponed, but they Stuart Webber had been on at the Premier League basically looking for guidance in terms of what do we do here. We've got the outbreak, who could be involved, who can't. They weren't 100% sure, so he wasn't able to name his team until late. So it's just been far from ideal preparation, and that's what we've ended up seeing. And I don't know, maybe that's what we saw on the pitch, almost a bit of feeling sorry for themselves. That's what the attitude almost felt a little bit like. They were down in the dumps, they were flat, they just could not get going tonight. It was thoroughly frustrating to watch. So to go through it very quickly, that meant Hanley, Norman, Rashica, Rupp, Lisa Malou, Zimmerman, Omar Bamadeli, Jolis and Sargent all weren't available tonight. That's 9. Then you get Kabak, makes it 10 in first half injury time. When you're a promoted team who's having a tough time of it, that's difficult to deal with, isn't it? Villa are no mugs. They move up to 8th tonight with this win. They're very much in that mid-table mix. So what does that put them on? 22 points, I think that is off the top of my head. So they probably aren't going to be in the relegation mix. That's 4 wins in Steven Gerrard's first 6. He enjoyed his celebrations over there at the final whistle. So yeah, we can probably count them out. Emi Buendia was their only change. In contrast, they did have to dip into some of the younger players on their bench because they've had a couple of COVID issues as well, and a couple of injuries, but they weren't quite to the same extent as Norwich, although they were missing Bertrand Traore, Marvellous Nick Kamba and Leon Bailey. So pretty decent players, or they would all be starters in Norwich's squad if we're perfectly honest, wouldn't we? And I think that just about covers it. Yeah, I mean, Byram, as I say, came on in defensive midfield, tried a bit. He did get booked for one completely mistimed tackle on Mings. Brandon Williams also got a booking I think that was in the first half, and he was living dangerously at points a couple of times. And yeah, that's just about it, I think. I mean, in terms of the main points of the game, Krul made one good save in the first half. John McGinn, lovely shot. He's got such a good left foot, isn't he? Dipping right at the last minute from about 30 yards, tipped that one over. The first goal comes in the 34th minute. Kabak at fault, takes out Ollie Watkins on halfway, and then Jacob Ramsey, the young midfielder, very highly rated at Villa, charges through on goal. Ben Gibson sort of squares him up and is trying to keep him on his left foot, presumably thinking, well, I'd rather he was on his left than his right. Then Max Aarons comes back and almost gets in the way. And I think the shot just takes a very slight deflection off Gibson, and that takes it past Krul into the top left corner with his left foot in the end. The McLean pass that I mentioned earlier from the Ashley Young back pass, that was 52nd minute. And the other big chance, 55th minute, that came from Brandon Williams losing the ball in midfield. A lovely cross from John McGinn. Ollie Watkins heads down and Krul saves with his legs. What was the deciding goal? It almost felt a bit strange during the game that it was only 1-0 up to that point, but 87th minute, that came from Billy Gilmore, who sort of disintegrated in that second half, just not really sure what happened with him. Every decision seemed to be the wrong one, really, and the crowd were really starting to moan and groan about that constantly happening and losing the ball a lot. He's got his opportunity to not play in the deeper defensive midfield role tonight, and he did ping a few decent balls about. That's what he's like. But that overall wasn't a great performance from him. And if there's enough bodies, then he may well find himself back out of the starting 11 on Saturday. But that may not be the case. And so yes, he has the opportunity to spark a counter and just gives the ball straight back to Villa. At that point, the atmosphere was quite good at times in here. The crowd were desperate for something to cling to. Just once again, moans and groans because the ball's given away. And then Mings plays the substitute, come on, young lad, Chukwuemeka, and that's a gorgeous little cross, to be fair, to Watkins to the back post, who keeps onside, and nice easy finish for him, 2-0, game over. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Let us know what you thought of it in the game below. How concerned in the comments below. Let us know how concerned you are by this. What does Dean Smith do from here? Can he do anything with depleted resources to a squad who were already unsure if they're good enough for the Premier League? Desperately need Norman back. That would be a huge boost. Although he's then going to be sort of from a cold start. They're hoping Rashica is going to be back for the Arsenal game here on Boxing Day. But otherwise, if you look at those players, if we assume tonight, although until we don't know this for certain because COVID's kind of in a bit of a transitional stage, isn't it? Because if you've got Omicron, the rules are slightly different and things like that. But if we assume at the moment that Rupp, Lees-Malou and Sargent are all going to be isolating along with Jolis and aren't going to be involved on Saturday at West Ham, then obviously that limits things. Hanley, we know, is not going to be available. Zimmerman's not until the start of next year. Omobamidele probably not until after Christmas. So Kabak, you'd hope, is probably going to be available again if it's only cramped, but that's a pretty lengthy list and a pretty sorry night. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Head over to Pinkham Plus for Paddy's pointers and for all the latest, and we will be analysing this and reflecting on a pretty disappointing night over the next couple of days. Thanks for watching.